The Suitcase. At precisely 2:19 a.m., a storm surged through Kansas City with the force of a confession. Rain hammered the wide windows of the Federal Bus Terminal in steady sheets, turning the waiting area into a cave of shifting reflections. Inside, under flickering fluorescence, a woman named Renee Caldwell made her rounds. At 36, Renee had worked the night shift long enough to know the rhythms of stillness. She moved through the echoing space like a caretaker of ghosts, noting sleeping passengers with practiced eyes. Her job wasn't glamorous, but it was steady, and for someone like Renee, raising a neurodivergent son alone, steady was sacred. She passed gate 14 and noticed something out of place. A brown leather suitcase sat soaked just beneath the overhang. Not dropped, not discarded. Set down, carefully, as if its owner had intended to return. Ray. She called to the night security guard, who stood sipping coffee near the entrance. Another orphan bag. Ray didn't even look. Tag it and stash it in Lost and Found. But Renee crouched beside the suitcase instead. The brass trim had dulled with use, but the leather was high quality. Not flashy. Well-loved. There were no tags, no identifiers, no TSA stickers. Just wear, and the weight of something held too long. She ran her fingers over it, just once. This wasn't abandoned, she whispered. Ray rolled his eyes. Same difference. But Renee didn't think so. She brought the suitcase inside, wiped it down, and placed it behind her desk. Not on the Lost and Found shelf, where things went to disappear. Somewhere safer. She didn't know yet that the man who left it behind, in that moment of desperate decision, was unraveling. 6 hours earlier, Jordan Bennett had sprinted through the rain toward the Missoula-bound bus, soaked to the bone in his Italian loafers and suit now clinging to his frame. He had almost missed the departure. Almost. Just before boarding, his phone buzzed. St. Luke's Medical, read the screen. He paused. The suitcase hit the pavement. This is Jordan, he said into the phone, rain trickling from his brow. A voice on the other end told him the news. He nodded, listened, whispered, "Tell her I'm coming. Please, tell her I'm coming." The driver tapped his wrist. "You in or out?" Jordan climbed the steps numbly. Behind him, the suitcase remained in the rain, forgotten. At the other end of that stormy night, Renee sat sipping black coffee as she examined the mysterious suitcase again. It wasn't just a lost item. It felt held. Important. She remembered her grandmother's words. Things remember. They hold on to who we are. Renee wasn't in the habit of breaking protocol, but something about this suitcase made her wait. Just wait. Lisa, a new hire still wide-eyed from training, peered over at it the next night. Shouldn't that be in central processing by now? Renee shrugged, giving the owner a chance to come back. Lisa smirked. Could be something expensive in there. Could split it. Renee looked at her. That's not who I am. She told a story of a lost wallet when she was 10, how her mother returned it despite them being 3 weeks behind on rent. The owner was an old man saving for his granddaughter's birthday. The smile on his face when they returned it had never left her. Some things, she said, you just don't take. Lisa rolled her eyes, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, Jordan stepped off the bus in Missoula and reached for what wasn't there. Panic set in instantly. The suitcase was gone. The journal inside, the one he'd written to his dying mother, the one filled with words he never got to say, gone with it. Calls to the Kansas City terminal led nowhere. Protocols. Databases. No record. Sorry, sir. If it wasn't logged, it's probably been discarded. But Jordan couldn't discard what that journal held. It was all that remained of Clara Bennett. Her memory. Her laughter. Her unconditional love for a son who was always too busy building something to ever just be there. Back in Kansas City, Renee's world moved in patterns. She woke after Malik, her 8-year-old son, left for school. Malik didn't speak much. He arranged his toy cars by color, and routine ruled his days. Renee didn't try to fix him. She saw him, exactly as he was. That morning, her neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, nodded toward the familiar suitcase behind Renee's desk and said, "Still holding that thing?" Renee just smiled, not ready to let go yet. Later that night, she opened the suitcase, just the top pocket, to look for ID. Instead, she found a journal. She read only the first line. "Dear Mom, I never got to tell you this." Renee closed it gently and placed it back. Across the country, Jordan spiraled. He couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't forgive himself. Not for missing his mother's final hours. Not for leaving that suitcase behind. That journal wasn't replaceable. It was her. He booked a train ticket. He was going back. Not to retrieve a suitcase. To reclaim something he thought he'd lost forever. At the Kansas City terminal, Renee finally received the formal write-up. Her supervisor, Robert Canfield, warned her, "One more deviation and you're out." She signed the warning without flinching. Some things are worth protecting. Later that night, while sketching passengers during her break, a habit she'd picked up for peace, she drew a man she'd seen weeks earlier. Wet, quiet, shoulders heavy, sitting alone beneath the awning, like grief itself. She captured him, waiting. Something about that moment had stayed with her. She didn't know yet that his name was Jordan Bennett. Jordan arrived in Kansas City days later. He approached the counter and asked if anyone had seen a brown suitcase. The clerk checked the system. Nothing's logged. But you might try Renee Caldwell. She sometimes, keeps things longer than she's supposed to. When does she get in? 6. Tonight. Jordan sat in the terminal for 5 hours. Waiting for the woman who had saved his mother's voice. Renee arrived to see him immediately. She recognized the eyes, the grief, the stillness, the man from her sketch. "Are you Jordan?" she asked softly. He stood. "You have it." "I do." She retrieved the suitcase from the back. He reached for it with trembling hands, ran his fingers over the brass plate. His eyes watered. "You kept it all this time?" Renee nodded. It mattered to someone. He opened the latch and saw the journal, the soft cloth still wrapped around it. He didn't speak for a long while. Then he said, "Thank you." She asked, gently, "Clara?" He nodded, unable to speak. Renee placed a hand over his. "I didn't read it. Just the first line." Jordan exhaled deeply. For the first time in weeks, his shoulders dropped. She invited him for coffee. He said yes. They sat in a corner booth, the suitcase between them. He told her about his mother, about all the time he thought he had, about the 5-minute call that cost him her last breath. Renee told him about Marcus, her late husband, about the saxophone that got lost after the crash, about the one officer who bought it back from auction just to return it. "Everyone," she said, "deserves one thing that mattered." They sat in that coffee shop until the crowd thinned. Not strangers anymore, just two people holding space for one another. Weeks later, Renee received a formal invitation from the Clara Bennett Foundation. All expenses paid for her art students to attend a gallery opening in Missoula. Jordan never signed the invitation, but she knew it was him. She brought Malik and 8 children from the center. And for the first time in years, Renee saw her life not as a string of sacrifices, but a quiet story of recognition. She saw her son speak to a publisher about patterns. She saw her students treated as artists. She saw her sketch of Jordan displayed under the words, "Sometimes being seen is the beginning of healing." And in the quiet that followed, she drew again. Not just waiting figures now, but people meeting, helping, connecting. Because sometimes, the suitcase we carry holds more than belongings. It holds who we are, who we've lost, and if we're lucky, who helps us find our way back.